All right, guys. So let's start a quick revision of overheads, the most important chapter in your syllabus. Every attempt it comes for minimum 10 marks. Okay. Okay. Before we start with the chapter, let's try to understand what is the purpose of this chapter. The purpose is to find overhead cost per unit. Okay. See, the purpose of every chapter is different because unless you understand the purpose, you will not understand the concepts inside that particular chapter. For example, if you look at material and labor chapter, that is employee cost. What is the purpose of those chapters? It is not to calculate material cost per unit or labor cost per unit. Okay, it is to control material cost per unit as well as labor cost per unit. Similarly, if you check all the concepts in your material chapter, it will be towards controlling the material cost. If you take EOQ concept or even the stock levels and all these things, okay, so it syncs with the ultimate purpose of the chapter. Similarly, when it comes to overheads also, the ultimate purpose of the chapter is to calculate overhead cost per unit. Why? Because it is indirect cost. You know that there are two types of cost, direct cost as well as indirect cost. The nature of direct cost is that immediately the moment it is incurred, you will be able to find out what is direct cost per unit. Whereas when it comes to indirect cost, you will not be able to say what is the indirect cost per unit the moment it is incurred. Immediately you will not be able to say, but ultimately you will find indirect cost per unit or overhead cost per unit. But for that, it takes so many steps. That's what we're going to learn in this particular chapter. So what is the objective? To find out overhead cost per unit. Okay. Before we get to this particular chapter, let's try to have a brief idea of how are we going to calculate overhead cost per unit. Okay, so it's pretty simple. First, what we'll do is that we'll go with estimated overheads. Yes, you heard it right. Not the actual overheads, but the estimated overheads. Then eventually, first we'll start with primary distribution, where all these overheads will be distributed to all the departments. Then we'll go for secondary distribution, where the service department overheads will be redistributed back to production departments. Then we will do absorption in the production departments. You understand the point? Depending upon what is the predominant influencing factor in that particular production department. Say, for example, if it is labor dominated or mission dominated. If it is labor dominated, we'll divide it with labor hours. If it is mission dominated, we'll divide it with mission hours. And eventually, we'll be able to calculate mission hour rate or labor hour rate. And eventually, finally, we'll look at the final finished good. And it has taken how many mission hours in each of the department. We'll multiply with mission hour rate. Eventually, we'll find out overhead cost per unit, and the chapter is done. Of course, finally, once you are able to find out overhead cost per unit, you will see whether it is under absorbed and over absorbed. That eventually that calculation also will do. Mota say this is what this chapter is all about. The entire chapter is done. Okay, now this we're gonna see in detail. Of course, it's a revision session, so don't expect detailed explanation and logics the way we do it in regular class or exam oriented batch. Clear? Anyways, now let's move on. So ultimately, there are three types of overheads. Now, always imagine three buildings when it comes to overheads. Building number one, building number two, building number three. This is factory where all the manufacturing will happen. This is administration building, or we can also call it as office building, where the administration work will happen. The other one is like a showroom, okay, selling and distribution building. So always remember three buildings. Clear? Now, so naturally, you have three types of overheads. Three buildings, three types of overheads. Production overheads, which can also be called as manufacturing overheads, correct, or works overheads. Then you have administration overheads, which can also be called as office overheads. Then we have selling and distribution overheads. Okay, so what is the purpose of this chapter? We need to account for all these three types of overheads, as well as you need to control them as well. Ultimately, we need to find overhead cost per unit. That is the major purpose, main purpose. Okay, right. Then we will see distribution of overheads in this chapter. Then we will see overhead rate calculation, and finally concepts related with capacity also we'll see. That is also important. एक दो मोटा मोटा sum है, right? Moving on. Introduction. Expenses incurred for output in general and not for a particular work order are nothing but overheads actually. Okay, supervisor expenses, heat and lighting expenses for a factory. So what he's trying to say is that overheads are general expenses in nature. They are not specific for a particular product. So that's obvious. Moving on. Let's look at the classification of overheads by function. See, basically there are three functions, Nana. Manufacturing function, administration function, selling and distribution function. Naturally, if there are three functions, there are three different types of overheads. Manufacturing overheads, administration overheads, selling and distribution overheads. That's all he's trying to say over here. Clear? Moving on. By nature, you can also classify overheads into three. What are they? Fixed overheads, variable overheads, semi-variable overheads. Nature means how they behave along with the output. If the output keeps on varying and your overheads is fixed, then it is called fixed overheads because its nature is fixed. If output is varying and your overheads is also varying along with them simultaneously, parallelly, proportionately, then it is variable overheads. And your output is varying and your fixed overheads is also varying, but it is not proportionate, disproportionate variation, then we call it as semi-variable overheads. Clear? Right. Now you can see the examples over here. Fixed overheads. What are the examples, Nana? Salary paid to permanent employees. Obviously fixed. Depreciation of building and plant and equipment. Fixed. Interest on capital insurance is fixed. Now what about variable expenses? Variable overheads. Indirect materials, variable overheads, sandpaper, paint, nuts and bolts. All these are variable in nature. Na? Along with the output, they will vary as well. Power and fuel. Obviously variable, because more the output, more the power, more the output, more the fuel, so variable. Lubricants, variable, more the output, more the lubricant consumption. Tools and spares, variable, more the output, more the tools and spares used naturally. Semi variable overheads, electricity cost, obviously, because you'll have a slab system, so to some extent it will be fixed, all of a sudden it will vary and stuff like that, and the varying also will not be proportionate. That's why it is semi variable cost. Then water cost also, the billing will be like that, telephone billing also will be like that, internet billing also will be like that. Okay, where it is neither variable nor it is fixed, that's where we call it as semi-variable. Moving on. Next we have classification of overheads based on element. Already we have seen classification of overheads based on function. Then we have seen nature, the nature in which they behave. Then we are seeing elements. Elements means very simple, Nana. In 10th class in science, we have seen that water, right? Which is obviously H2O is the formula. Now let's say water is the finished good. It is made up of what elements? One is hydrogen, the other one is oxygen, correct? Similarly, here if there is a finished good, it will be made up of what elements naturally? Material will be there, labor will be there, and expenses will be there, correct? Because this is overheads, we cannot talk about direct material, direct labor, direct expense. So obviously it will be what? Indirect material, indirect labor, indirect expenses. That's what we have got over here. Elements means that only, na? If water is the finished good, it is made up of what elements? Hydrogen and oxygen. Similarly, if some sort of output we have got, let's say a bench, then it is made up of what elements? Sorry, it is made up of what elements? Material, labor, as well as expenses. Here we are talking about overheads, therefore it will be indirect material, indirect labor, indirect expenses. If it is direct cost means it will be direct material, direct labor, direct expenses, right? But here we are talking about overheads chapter, therefore indirect material, indirect labor, indirect expenses. Moving on. Now what is indirect material? Materials which do not form part of cost object. Cost object is nothing but output. See, you should know basics for this. Cost object means you want to find cost of something, that something is cost object. For example, I want to find cost of output, then output is my cost object. I want to find cost of a maintenance department, then maintenance department is my cost object. I want to find cost of a particular key managerial personnel, then that key managerial personnel is cost object. To put it very simple, you want to find cost of something, that something is cost object. Clear? Now, most of the times the cost object will be output, because most of the times manufacturing companies will have output and manufacturing companies would like to find out the cost of the output. Therefore, cost of the output calculation, output is nothing but your cost object, correct? Because you want to find cost of output. Now, materials which do not form part of output is nothing but indirect material. Say for example, you are manufacturing bench, Nana. The wood is a direct material, correct? But you take a sandpaper and you try to smoothen that particular bench. Does it form part of the final product bench? No. But sandpaper is a material. Still, it is used for creating that bench, na? The finesse of that particular bench, the smoothness or whatever you call, right? But that material is not forming part of the final output, correct? Then that material is what material? Indirect material. That's the best example I can give. Easy to understand. Okay, few more example your ICA has given. Let's go through that. Stores used for maintaining machines and buildings, that is lubricants, cotton waste, bricks. See, in most of the companies there will be cotton waste also. They'll use cotton to clean the machines and clean a lot of stuff. It will not go into final product manufacturing, but you'll be using it for cleaning purpose. It is a material, you're using it, but it is not forming part of the output. Therefore, it is indirect material. Clear? Right. Then stores used by service departments like powerhouse, boiler house, canteen, etc. All these stores that they are using, that will also come under indirect materials. Moving on. Indirect labor means what? Labor which do not form part of the cost object. Cost object means output, you know that. Okay, what is the labor that do not form part of the cost object? Very simple. Salary paid to foreman, supervisor, salary paid to administration staff. Now I'll take supervisor example and then I'll explain you. See, Nana, suppose you are manufacturing benches. Okay. Who will be the direct labor? Carpenter. You pay carpenter 1000 rupees per day. He manufactures 4 benches in a single day. Then what is carpenter's cost per bench? 4 benches, 1000 rupees per day, which means 250 per unit of bench. That is the carpenter labor cost. So which is nothing but direct labor. Are you able to find direct labor per unit instantly? Yes, that's why it is direct labor actually. Now, same example, let's talk about supervisor. Now, in your company, some carpenters are manufacturing benches, some carpenters are manufacturing podium, some carpenters are manufacturing beds, some carpenters are manufacturing chairs, and some X number of benches, Y number of chairs, Z number of podiums are getting manufactured every single day. All these works are done by different carpenters, and they are supervised by the so-called supervisor. Now, for this supervisor, let's say you're paying 50,000 salary. Now tell me, what is supervisor cost per unit of bench? What is supervisor cost per unit of chair? What is supervisor cost per unit of podium? Can you say it instantly? Now earlier, with respect to carpenter, you just said it instantly, right? You said it instantly, right? When it comes to supervisor, can you do the same? No. That's why supervisor is called indirect labor. But ultimately, you can find what is the supervisor cost per unit of bench. You can find, but it will take a lot of effort. You can't say it instantly. Therefore, it becomes indirect labor. Clear? Moving on. Expenditure that cannot be directly allocated to the cost center is nothing but indirect expenses. For example, rates and taxes, insurance. You take insurance for the whole factory building. In that, so many benches are getting manufactured. Same example which I've told you. So many podiums are getting manufactured. You took insurance for the entire building. Now, what is insurance cost per unit of bench? Instantly, can you answer? No. Instantly, I can't. But after a lot of efforts, I can find. Instantly, you can't do that. Therefore, it is indirect. It is neither material, because your insurance is not a material expenditure, correct? It is neither labor. You are not paying to some employee in your company. So therefore, it comes under expenses. That's why it is called indirect expense. Clear? Same goes with depreciation. Same logic which I've told you. Same goes with advertisement expenses as well. Clear? So based on elements, you can classify your overheads into three: indirect material, indirect labor, and indirect expenses. I try to explain you as much as possible in this revision session. Usually when it comes to EOB, that is exam oriented batch or regular class, we'll take a lot of time to study this, but in revision we can't do the same. So fatafat we have to complete, because I have a target of finishing this off in 1 hour so that you'll be able to write your exam tomorrow bell. Right? Moving on. By control, how can you classify your overhead cost? Now already we have seen three different types of classification: by function, three functions, so three different types of overheads; by nature, fixed, variable, semi-variable; by element, indirect material, indirect labor, indirect expenses. Now we're gonna see by control. Okay, ready? Now let's classify the overheads based on control. Okay, so pretty simple this is. You have controllable cost as well as uncontrollable cost. Obviously, what do you mean by controllable cost? That can be controlled by managerial influence as well as proper policies. For example, material cost, can you control? Yes. Wages and salary, can you control? It is there in your hands now. You are the ones who are finalizing it, right? Power and fuel, yes, you can control. Depending upon the efficiency of the machines and efficiency of your manufacturing operations, you can reduce the you can reduce the consumption of power as well as fuel. Whereas, what do you mean by uncontrollable cost? It's completely outside the control of the company. For example, rates and taxes. Is it within the control of the company? Obviously not. Depreciation. Once you start using the machine, if there is a depreciation based on effects of time, then it is not in your control. If the depreciation is based on the usage of machine, yeah, the more you use the machine, the more depreciation. The less you use the machine, the less will be the depreciation eventually, right? But if it is based on effects of time, then whether you use the machine or you don't use the machine, ultimately depreciation will keep on happening, right? So it is completely out of your control. So I'm talking about that depreciation which is based on effects of time. Interest on borrowings, obviously, again, it is not in your control, because it is between you and the financial institution, and now it is not on your control, especially if you have agreed upon floating rate of interest. And if it is varying based on LIBOR or whatever the rate, MIBOR or whatever it is, then it is not in your control. It is based on the economics of that particular country and the world as well, right? So these are all uncontrollable costs. What about these one? Within the control of the company. Company means indirectly we are talking about the managerial aspect of the company, the one who takes decision on behalf of the company. Clear? Right, moving on. Advantages of classification of overheads into fixed and variable. We have already seen that we can classify our overheads based on nature into fixed overheads, variable overheads, and semi-variable overheads. Why do you want to classify something like that? Because of these advantages. What are they? One, you can control the expenditure better once you classify, because you know that fixed overheads will anyway remain fixed to some extent. After that, again, it will vary. To some extent, it will remain fixed. Variable will vary proportionately. So based on this understanding, you'll be able to control them better, correct? Preparation of budget estimates also will become easy, because as I told you, overheads are not your actual expenses. You will know actual overheads only at the end of the year. So therefore, at the beginning of the year, you always go with estimates. Now, once you have to estimate your overheads, how will you estimate? Once you know the fixed overheads, okay, that you can estimate. Variable overheads means, okay, this varies along with the output. These many output, these many units of production I'm planning to manufacture this particular year, which means the variable overheads will be so much based on the production which I'm planning to manufacture. You got the point. So like that, you'll be able to estimate the overheads better because of classification of the overheads into fixed as well as variable. If you don't do this classification, then obviously you'll not be able to estimate it with that most. That's the reason we do segregation. Na? See, in marginal costing also, you have seen a concept called segregation of the semi-variable cost into variable and fixed. Why? Because only when you segregate, you'll be able to understand it better. Even in budgeting chapter also, we do the same, right? We segregate them into variable and fixed. Only then you'll be able to calculate your flexible budget, correct? Otherwise, you can't do it. So segregation is inevitable. You got the point? Even in budgeting chapter also, we have seen the same. While you are preparing flexible budget, there will be pure variable cost, there will be pure fixed cost. That pure fixed cost will anyway will remain fixed irrespective of the operating capacity, 70% or 80% or 90%. You will copy paste that. Variable cost anyway, it will vary proportionately. You will multiply with number of units at 70%, 80%, 90% capacity. You multiply that. Semi-variable cost, what you will do? You will segregate that into variable and fixed. Then only you will put the budget, correct? Same logic here, preparation of budget estimates, obviously. Here we are talking about overheads in general. In budgeting chapter, you will see all different types of cost, not just overheads, direct cost as well. Clear? Moving on, decision making. Obviously, in marginal costing, that is what we have studied, na? To take a decision, you have to classify a cost into fixed and variable, and eventually fixed will become irrelevant, variable will become relevant, and that is what marginal costing, the chapter, is all about. Correct? CVP analysis. So obviously, now you have understood all these 3 points. Moving on. Accounting and control of manufacturing overheads. Okay, what is that? To understand this, let's look at the objective of any company. Any company. What is the objective of any company? They have to fix the selling price. Suppose you are a price setter. You can set the selling price. You are in a kind of a market where you can set the selling price. Okay, you are not a price taker. Price taker means whatever the selling price that has been given by the market, we need to accept. Let's presume that the company we are talking about right now is a price setter, which means company can fix the selling price. Then how will the company fix the selling price? It will calculate its total cost per unit. Then it will add desired profit, and accordingly the selling price per unit will be fixed, correct? So to fix the selling price per unit, you should know total cost per unit, correct? Now, how to calculate total cost per unit? Direct cost per unit plus indirect cost per unit. Direct cost per unit, anyway, it is easily available. Why? Just now we have discussed. The moment direct cost is incurred, instantly you can calculate direct cost per unit. That is why it is called direct cost, because of that very nature. Okay. Whereas, when it comes to indirect cost per unit, which is nothing but the other name is overheads, the moment it is incurred, you can't calculate what is overhead cost per unit. For that only we are studying this big chapter. Ultimately, at the end of the chapter, we will be able to find out what is overhead cost per unit. You understand the point? So, if you don't know what is overhead cost per unit, then you can't calculate total cost per unit. Then you can't add profit margin. Then you can't fix your selling price. Then you can't do your business. Clear? So, therefore, what we do? Sir, what is there, sir? Okay, find out your actual overhead, sir, how much it is. Unfortunately, actual overheads will know only at the end of the year. Can you wait till the end of the year and then find out what is actual overheads, and then find out actual overhead cost per unit, and then add it to direct cost per unit, and then find out total cost per unit, and then add profit margin, and then fix selling price? You can't, because you have to do it on day one, on April 1st itself. From day one, you'll start doing your business. From day one, you'll be buying and selling, correct? Or you'll be manufacturing and selling, depending upon what kind of company you are. So I don't have a choice. So what do? I go for predetermined overheads or estimated overheads, not actual overheads. Let it be very clear. So see here, one method is to work out predetermined rates for absorbing overheads. These rates are worked out before an accounting period begins, which means before your April 1st begins, usually in the month of March or Feb, these predetermined rates will be calculated. Okay. Now, how it will be calculated, sir? Very simple. You will do your budgeted overheads. You will divide it with budgeted output, and you will get budgeted rate per unit. Na? That is nothing but predetermined rate. This budgeted rate per unit is nothing but predetermined rate. Clear? You will do it before the accounting period begins, which means your accounting period begins in the month of April. You will do this in the month of March. By estimating the amount of overheads, obviously, estimating the amount of overheads is nothing but budgeted overheads. And the level of activity in the ensuring job. What is the level of activity? Now I've taken budgeted output. Now that is nothing but level of activity. Level of activity is nothing but the number of units that you are planning to produce. Thus, as soon as prime cost of the product or job is available, prime cost is nothing but direct cost. If this is available, the various overheads are charged by these rates. You got the point. Now that you have calculated budgeted rate per unit, once you know how many units of output you have manufactured, you multiply that with number of units. You understand the point? Of course, you have got 6 different types of overhead absorption rates. Here I've taken only one. That we will see when we go to the concept of absorption. Right now, let's not learn everything. Okay, we are still at the beginning of the chapter. Anyways, of course, this implies that overheads are charged on estimated basis. Later, we will know what the actuals are. Once we reach the end of the year, we will know what the actuals are. The difference between these absorbed overheads and the actuals is nothing but under our over absorption that eventually will adjust. Clear? Right now, you will have 50-50 understanding. Don't worry about that. This paragraph is difficult to understand. Your ICA has given, so therefore I have also given. But once we move further, once we look into the concept of absorption of overheads, there you will have 100% clarity. So wait till that time. Okay, now see Anana. Ready? This is important concept, Nana. Focus. Now look at this, Nana, carefully. This talks about the entire chapter, okay, in this particular page itself. So I want you guys to focus. What is the target objective of this chapter? To find total cost per unit, which means you need direct cost per unit and indirect cost per unit, correct? Direct cost per unit, do I know? Yes, easily available. Instantly it will be available. Indirect cost per unit, don't know. So therefore what you will do, you will go with predetermined rate. Predetermined rate is nothing but budgeted rate, which I already explained you. We'll see it in clarity once we go to concept of absorption. So don't worry right now, even if you have 50-50 understanding, okay? Then what I'll do after calculating predetermined rate, I will do cost allocation. Now, allocation means, say for example, there is an indirect wages of a particular department. Take the entire cost and throw it in one single department. That we call it as allocation. Take the entire cost and throw it in one single department. We call it as allocation. Whereas apportionment means you take a particular cost and then divide them, distribute them to all the departments. One department, second, third, fourth. This we call it as apportionment. Clear? Difference is clear? Okay. So cost allocation first you will do, where overheads will be given to a particular department or a cost center. Cost center means anything that is responsible for incurring cost, we call it as a cost center. For example, production department. Is it a cost center? Yes. Because of production department, you're actually incurring cost. So it is a cost center. Purchasing department. Is it a cost center? Yes. Because in purchasing department, you will purchase, raw materials. So you're incurring cost there. So therefore, it is a cost center. As simple as that. So first you will give cost allocation, means take a particular cost, give it to one single department. Got it? After that, what you will do, you will take the remaining cost of overheads and you will distribute them on a suitable basis. Remember the word suitable basis. You will distribute them on a suitable basis to all the departments, which we call it as apportionment. After that, what we'll do, when I do this primary distribution, I'll distribute the so-called overheads to all the departments. These all departments can be classified into two categories, two major categories. What are they? One is production departments, the other one is service departments. So when I do this so-called cost apportionment, that is primary distribution, for the first time when I'm distributing, I will take these overheads on a suitable basis. I will divide them to all the departments. In that, production departments will be there, service departments also will be there. You understand the point? Later, what I will do when it comes to secondary distribution or reapportionment, this can be called as primary distribution. This can be called as secondary distribution. Okay. In secondary distribution, what I'll do now, where are the overheads right now? It is already there in all the departments, correct? In this, I will take the secondary departments, service departments. Okay, your overheads are there in all the departments, both production as well as service. Now I'll take the overheads in the service departments and then I'll redistribute them back to production departments. I'll take the overheads from the service departments and then I'll redistribute them back to production departments. That we call it as reapportionment or secondary distribution of overheads. Now, once this reapportionment is done, where are your overheads right now? They are there in the production departments, because from service departments also it has been reapportioned back to production departments, correct? Now, where are they right now? In production departments. You understand the point? Now, what you'll do, you'll find a suitable basis in those production department. Usually we call it as significant influencing factor or predominant influencing factor. For example, There is production department 1. What is predominant influencing factor in production department? Labor hours. It is labor dominated department, full of labor, less number of machines. Then you will divide the so-called overheads with labor hours. You will get labor hour rate. Production department 2, it is dominated by machines. So the predominant influencing factor or significant influencing factor is machines. So divide it with machine hours, you'll get machine hour rate. You got the point? So like that, you will do absorption. So you calculate the machine hour rate or labor hour rate, you'll keep it like this. And product A is manufactured, product B is manufactured, product C is manufactured. Now you'll see product A, how many hours you have taken in my production department. Okay, I've taken 2 labor hours. Okay, per labor hour the cost is 10 rupees, so your overhead cost is 20 because you have taken 2 labor hours. Now similarly, product A has spent in production department 2 also, but there it is machine hour rate na. For 1 hour of machine it will cost you 50 rupees. He has taken 1 hour of machine only. Okay, then 50 rupees will be given. Accordingly, this will be added and you'll get overhead cost per unit. Right now you'll get a, what can I say, rough clarity. That's enough, because further we proceed in this particular chapter, you'll get much more clarity. Like that, you will get overhead cost per unit, and after that you'll have under or absorption, that you will do the treatment and it will be transferred to costing P&L account, presuming that this under or absorption is due to what can I say, the reasons are also important over here, in the sense why there is under or over absorption. You got the point? Predominantly it will be transferred to costing P&L account only, but in few cases you'll be asking the good units to observe the under or over absorption. Okay, that depends upon the reason. What is that, we will see later in this particular chapter. Okay, but to put it simple, this is what this chapter is all about, Nana. First, you will start with calculating predetermined rate, then you will do cost allocation, then you will do primary distribution, which is nothing but cost apportionment, then you will do secondary distribution, which is nothing but reapportionment, then you will do absorption of overheads, then you will treat the over or under absorption. Mostly you will be transferring them to costing P&L account 90% of the times. 10% of the times it will be observed by good units. What are the situations where it will be observed by good units? What are the circumstances? What are the reasons? That we will see later. Clear? All right, moving on. Okay, now we're gonna start with overheads apportionment to various departments, production and service. We are talking about primary distribution, means this step. Okay, where overheads will be allocated to all the departments, both production as well as service departments, on a suitable basis. Let's try to understand that. Ready? Now we are talking about apportionment of the overheads to all the departments, irrespective of whether it is production or service departments. Clear? Primary distribution, which we call, or you can also call it as just apportionment. When we do secondary distribution, you can call it as reapportionment. Okay, now look at this. So what's happening? Basically, rent obviously will be divided on what, Nana? What is the suitable basis? Floor area or volume of the department. That's also indirectly area only. Okay, right. Lighting and heating, that is also depending upon the area, because more the area, more you need lighting and heating. Less the area, less you need. Okay, we don't have time to explain each and every item, Nana, because we are doing revision. So just try to remember. Okay, fire precaution service, more the area, more the fire precaution service you have to incur eventually. Air conditioning, same logic, depending upon the area. Then perquisites, labor welfare expenses, timekeeping. Timekeeping means when a labor comes, when he goes out, everything will be taken care. Okay, personal office, supervision, all these things will depend upon number of workers. More the number of workers, more the supervision, more the personal office expenses, more the timekeeping expenses, more the labor welfare, more the perquisites. Clear? Compensation to workers. Okay, holiday pay, ESI and PF contribution, perquisites. This will also be dependent on direct wages as well. Very, very, very important, because all these expenses are based on salary, Nana, indirectly direct wages. Okay, are you able to get me? So therefore, based on that only, they'll be giving you holiday pay expenses. ESI, PF will be based on your salary. Perquisites also will be based on the same. Therefore, these expenses will be apportioned based on direct wages. Moving on. General overhead. What about general overhead, Nana? So general overheads will be apportioned to all the departments based on labor hours or direct wages or mission hours. It depends. It depends upon that particular, departments in that particular company. You got the point? They are influenced by what? Based on that. It can be anything depending upon the situation of that particular problem. Okay, moving on. Depreciation of plant and machinery. It will be obviously based on the capital value. Okay, Capital value means total cost of the machines. Okay. Repairs and maintenance of a machine, obviously based on capital value. Insurance of the stock, depending upon the value of the stock. So more the value of the stock, more the capital value of the stock, more the insurance for the stock. Clearly, right? So all these things will be based on capital value. Moving on. Power, steam consumption, technical estimates, that the technical department will take care of that. Internal transport, managerial salaries. These things you just remember that will be apportioned to all the departments based on technical estimates. So how is that? Those experts will take care of it. We don't know that. It will be given in the question. We just follow and do the problem. Next, lighting expenses. Light, just the light. Okay. It will be based on number of light points or area or metered units. It depends upon what kind of data is given in the question. So read the question carefully. Accordingly, you will try to apportion this lighting expenses. Okay. Don't get confused with this lighting expenses. Okay. Here it is lighting and heating. This will be based on floor area. Okay. Lighting and heating will be based on floor area. Whereas here we are talking about lighting expenses only. This will be based on number of light points or area also. But if light points is given, the priority, the importance will go to light points. Clear? If that is not given, then probably you'll go with area or metered units, depending upon the data given in the question. Next, electric power or machine operation. This will be based on horsepower of the machine or number of machine hours or value of machines of units consumed. Again, depending upon the data. Okay. Next, material handling or stores overhead. This will be based on weight of the materials, because how much weight of the materials you have got, that much the labor has to handle the materials, that much will be the cost. Correct? Same goes with stores overhead as well. Okay, right? Now this you got to remember, Nana. Usually if it is a normal regular class or exam oriented batch, I have told you we will discuss this particular page itself for at least like 30 minutes. Okay, but here this is a revision session. I don't have time to do that, so all you have to do is just remember. Okay, moving on. In few rare cases, basis of apportionment can be something special. What is that? Let's try to understand now. So these are kind of exceptional situations, Nana. Okay, so sometimes what will happen, light expenses will be based on light points, that already we have seen over here. Okay, next, based on ability to pay, sometimes you will be apportioning your overheads in rare cases based on ability to pay. This is just like direct taxation system, which means say for example, sales of different products in a territory you take, and selling related expenses will be apportioned based on ability. That is, where the amount of sales is high, there more selling related overhead expenses will be apportioned. Where the amount of sales is less, there less overhead expenses will be given, which means more the ability for you, more the sales for you, more the sales related expenses. Less the ability, less the sales for you, less sales related expenses. Okay, that is nothing but based on ability to pay. Just like direct taxation system, Nana, right? More the earnings that you do, more will be the direct taxes, right? Unlike indirect taxes, which is basically equal for all. Anyways, moving on. Efficiency or incentive. Now this is very important. Sometimes you will apportion your overhead expenses based on efficiency or incentive. Sir, what do you mean by this, sir? Means, see here, this apportion will be based on predetermined levels of production or sales. Means, say for example, I will say I will apportion, suppose let's say 1 lakh of overheads based on your predetermined production or sales. Let's say I've predetermined that your sales will be, say for example, 10,000 units, which means on an average your overhead cost per unit will be how much? 10 rupees. 1 lakh 10,000 units. So this is predetermined. So which means it is 10 rupees per unit, correct? Whereas in reality, if your actual production or sales, is greater than predetermined production or sales, then in that case what will happen? You'll have less overheads cost apportionment, which means less overhead per unit, greater profit. Means initially I thought that your overheads will be 1 lakh and I thought that your predetermined production is 10,000 units. Therefore per unit the overhead cost will be 10. Whereas your actual sales or actual production is 12,000, suppose. In that case what will happen? Now your overhead apportionment will not change. It will be the same 1 lakh, but now it will be divided by 12,000. Eventually what will happen? Obviously, now it's going to be 8.33 per unit. So basically what is happening? Less overhead cost per unit. Earlier it was 10 rupees per unit. Correct? In our initial example, but now it is 8.33 per unit, which means less overhead cost per unit. Less overheads apportionment, right? Based on the number of units that you have done, production or sales, whatever it is, and therefore it will be greater profit. So that is what we call it as efficiency or incentive basis. The more the production you do, you enjoy lesser overhead cost per unit. The more the sales you do, you enjoy lesser overhead cost per unit. You understand the point? That's what we call incentive. Got it? Right. Moving on. Allocation versus apportionment. I already explained you this. Okay. Now let's go to the reapportionment of overheads. That is nothing but secondary distribution. Okay. Secondary distribution of overheads from service departments to production departments. Okay. I'll write that over here. Secondary distribution of overheads from service departments to production departments. Reapportionment, or you can call this as reapportionment or secondary distribution of service department overheads to what? Production departments. Now let's do that. Let's see that over here. Now I'll not be explaining the logics behind all these things, Nana, because this is a revision session. We don't have time. Okay. Maintenance and repair shop, planning and progress, tool room, or these are cost of the service department. This will be apportioned on what basis? Labor hours, or it can be mission hours, or it can be direct labor wages, or it can be asset value into hours work. It depends upon the sum. It depends upon the problem. You have to remember this. Usually in regular class, we'll try to understand the logic of each and every one. Right now, that is not the time. Okay, we don't have time. Moving on. Canteen and welfare, hospital and dispensary, personal department. This is very easy to remember because it is based on number of people, number of workers. So obviously number of workers or number of employees will be the suitable basis. Okay. Timekeeping, this is again number of employees only. Sometimes it will be number of card punch depending upon the data given in the question. Computer section, number of computer hours that you are using, number of computers also that has been allocated to each and every department based on that. Powerhouse, it based on floor area. Okay. Cubic content, that is also kind of an area only. It's a measurement. Number of electric points or wattage based on that. Okay. Powerhouse expenses will be reapportioned. Powerhouse electric power cost will be based on horsepower or kilowatt hours or horsepower into mission hours. This is very important, Nana. Note this particular point. This is multiplied value of horsepower into mission hours, which means whenever you look into power cost, okay, in a question, if only horsepower is given, then you apportion it based on horsepower only, right? Sometimes horsepower will be given, mission hours or also will be given. In that case, most of the students get confused where they'll be thinking powerhouse should be apportioned based on mission hours. Some student will be thinking that powerhouse should be apportioned based on horsepower. That is not the case. It is multiplied value of both. Got it? Sometimes horsepower will not be given, kilowatt hours will be given. So you treat it as horsepower only, then kilowatt hours into mission hours multiplied value only, you should be apportioning your power cost. Very, very, very important, because this is not your electricity, Nana. Electricity is different from power. Electricity is used to light the light points, AC and stuff like that. Power we are talking about here is used to run the machines. You understand the point? So therefore, what will happen naturally? More the number of hours that you run the machine, more will be the power consumption. At the same time, more the horsepower of the machine, more will be your power consumption. For example, to make it easy for you to understand, let's say in the place of machine, let's imagine a car. Now you take Maruti Suzuki car because it has got a 1.5 liter engine, small engine. Okay. As a result, it consumes less power, less fuel in this case. Whereas if you go with Fortuner, because it has got a 2.5 liter engine, it consumes more fuel. So because of the horsepower of the engine, its horsepower is 200 horsepower. Maruti engine is around 100 horsepower. So greater the horsepower, greater the consumption of fuel, correct? Similarly, greater the number of kilometers that you travel, greater will be the consumption of fuel. So ultimately, when two cars, Maruti Suzuki car as well as Toyota Fortuner, travel 500 kilometers, say for example from Bangalore to Hyderabad, in that case, how will you calculate your fuel consumption? Based on the horsepower of the machines plus the distance traveled. In other words, multiplied value of both. Same logic applies over here. Why I've taken so much time to explain the logic? Because in regular class, we'll do like this for each and every item. But this particular point why I've explained is because it is important and it's been asked many times in the examination, in questions as well. You got the point? That's why I've spent so much of time to explain this. Otherwise, in revision session, we don't have time. Okay, moving on. Stores department. Number of requisitions. Why number of requisitions? Very simple. Number of times you get request. Number of requisitions means official request only, na? You got the point. From whom you will get the official request? From the production department. Material requisition note will come to the stores department. I need so much material, so much quantity, so much material, so much quantity, so much material, so much quantity. Then stores department will issue those materials based on FIFO method or LIFO method or weighted average method to the production department, as long as it has got the stock. If it doesn't have the stock, if it thinks that stock will run out, then it will ask the purchase department to purchase the raw material. Then purchase department will purchase the raw material and again give it back to stores department, and stores department will issue the raw materials to production departments whenever it requires. Clear? So therefore, more the number of requisitions, more will be the cost of stores department. Na? More the employees you need, more will be the cost. Simple. Next, transport department. Naturally, crane hours, truck cars, truck mileage, truck tonnage, that is weight in the truck ton hours, tonnage handled, number of packaged of standard size. Okay, number of packages of standard size. So these are all the bases. Fire protection, capital values, obviously. Inspection hours, easy. Right. Moving on to the methods of reapportionment. Now this is important, Nana. We are talking about secondary distribution right now. In primary distribution, there are no methods. Why? Because in primary distribution, basically what happens, you just take a cost and then you apportion it to all the departments on a suitable basis. For example, rent based on floor area, lighting based on floor area, air conditioning based on floor area, labor welfare expenses based on number of workers, ESI and PF based on direct wages, general overheads based on labor hours. You understand the point? Like that, it's easy to apportion to all the departments. Whereas when it comes to secondary distribution, yes, we have seen the suitable basis over here for secondary distribution as well. But apart from that, there are a lot more complications when it comes to secondary distribution, where in secondary distribution, what happens? Your service department overheads will be reapportioned back toward production department. Correct? That we need to understand. Okay, let's look at all the methods. Ready? Now, from your examination perspective, this is very important. All these methods. Okay. We got methods for reapportionment, direct distribution method, step ladder method or step method or non-reciprocal method. Then we have got reciprocal services method. Now, before we get to these methods, because this revision session, of course, I'll be doing sums as well, but we'll try to do it fast. We'll not be solving it. So I'll try to give you a basic idea. Direct distribution method means what? See, say for example, you have 3 production departments, P1, P2, P3, you have 2 service departments. So in direct distribution method, what happens? Whatever the overheads that you have got in the service departments after primary distribution, that is where you have distributed overheads to all the departments, right? Whether it is production or service. This will be redistributed back to production departments from the service departments on a suitable basis. That's all. That's all. So the service department overheads will be redistributed back to production departments on a suitable basis. What is that suitable basis that we have seen over here? Here it seems a little bit odd for you, but when we start solving sums, it will be easy enough for you. Easily you will identify. Okay. In most of the sums, in question itself, he'll tell you that there are 2 service departments, there are 3 production departments, and service department 1 is giving 10% service to production department 3, 50% service to production department 2, 40% service to production department 1. He himself will tell you in the question. All you have to do is take the cost over here and divide it in this particular ratio. Game over. It's pretty simple. So in direct distribution method, what happens is that your service department's overheads will be distributed to production departments. As simple as that. That's all. Whereas when it comes to step method or non-reciprocal method, what happens is that let's take 3 service departments and 2 production departments. You need to understand one thing, Nana. Let's say this service department 1 is canteen department. It's a service department, correct? Now, what is the kind of service that canteen department provides? Everybody will come and eat. Employees from here, they will eat. Here they will eat. Here they will eat. S2 also will eat, na? Employees from service department 2 also will eat, now, which means what you need to understand here is that service department 1 not only provides service to all the 3 production departments, but also provides service to another service department as well, correct? In that case, when you're doing this apportionment, you did forget the other service department. You got the point? So that is what happens when it comes to step ladder method. In direct distribution method, we have totally ignored, which means in direct distribution method, we have ignored one service department giving service to another service department. Even in question, if that data is given, we will ignore that data. What data will ignore? One service department providing service to another service department, data will be ignored. And we will be doing secondary distribution of service department to production departments. Clear? In step ladder method, what will happen is that we will consider one service department providing service to another service department only one way. It is like a one-way traffic. One-way traffic means what, sir? I'll tell you. Let's say there are 3 production departments, 3 service departments, okay? Now, service department 1 has provided service to all the 3 production departments. as well as it has provided service to 2 service departments, which means here you'll put a block hole, which means because service department 1 has given service to service department 2 and 3, it can't take back service, one way traffic, which means you have given service now, you can't take back service. You understand the point? S1 has given service to S2 and S3, therefore S1 cannot take back service, one way traffic. I gave you, that's it, road is blocked. Now what about S2? S2 has taken service from S1, therefore it cannot give back service to S1, okay? But S2 can give service to S3. Clear? Now because S3 has taken service from S1 and S2, it cannot give back service to either S1 or S2. You understand the point? Once we start solving sums, you will take it better. But the core concept is this. Either as a service department, you can give service or you can take service. Any one can happen. If you have given service, you can't take service. If you have taken service, you can't give service. Clear? This is the concept. Once we start solving sum, you'll understand. One sum we'll do anyways. Now in reciprocal services method, what happens is that you will give service as well as you will take back service. Both will be considered. That's why it is called reciprocal services method. Okay, so if you take these three methods, the summary is in direct distribution method, one service department giving service to another service department will not be there. Either in the question data will not be given, or even if data is given in the question, you will ignore it. Step ladder method, or in this non-reciprocal service method, what will happen is that if a service department given service to another service department, that will be considered and it will stop there, which means either you can give service or you can take service. If you have given service, that's it, you can't take service. If you have taken service, that's it, you can't give service. One way traffic, that you need to remember the word one way traffic, you will understand. In reciprocal services method, what will happen is that both you can give as well as take service. Therefore under this we have three more methods: simultaneous equations method, trial and error method, and repeated redistribution method. Among this, only these two methods are important: simultaneous equations method as well as repeated redistribution method. Okay, trial and error method is not that important. Are we done with this? Now let's start solving sums. First we'll go with direct redistribution method. Okay, so illustration 1, 4.19. Let's go. Illustration 1. Now when it comes to secondary distribution, what we basically do, we take the overheads from the service departments and then we redistribute them back to production departments, correct? Now we are following which method? Direct distribution method, where one service department providing service to another service department will not be considered. Now let's have a look into the question. 3 production departments, their overhead cost is given, and 4 service departments, their overhead cost is given. Why overhead cost are here? Because primary distribution is already over. It is completed. After primary distribution, only this much overheads are present in all the departments. You understand the point? Primary distribution finished, or apportionment finished. Now we have to do reapportionment or secondary distribution. Clear? Now the following information is also given: department A, B and C. Okay, production departments, horsepower of the machine is given, number of workers is given, value of stores equation is given. All right. Prepare a statement of apportioning the cost of service departments over the production department using direct distribution method. So in direct distribution method, what you will do, you will take the service department overheads, you will apportion it only to production departments. That's all. You will not be considering one service department providing service to another service department. Moreover, data is also not given. Here data is given only for production departments. For service departments, data is not given, so there is no confusion. But in some questions, data will be given. Still, he will ask you to do it as per direct distribution method. In that case, what you will do? Ignore. In this question, anyway, it is not there, so we'll be ignoring. In some questions, if it will be there, still you have to ignore. Clear? Now, easy peasy. First, this you copy paste 30 lakhs, 26 lakhs, and 24 lakhs for all the 3 production departments. Copy pasted. Now we'll start with first service department, stores. How much you have got? 4 lakhs. What is a suitable basis for stores, Nana? Horsepower, number of workers, value of stores equation. Value of stores equation. In this ratio, you will apportion. Okay, you will take the 4 lakhs and you will apportion in the ratio of 250 is to 150 is to 100 between A, B and C. Ho gaya. Next, timekeeping and accounts. What is a suitable basis? Number of workers. Timekeeping means you are keeping the time of workers only, na? So 3 lakhs you take in the ratio of 20 is to 15 is to 15, right? This one. That 20 is to 15 is to 15 has been further reduced. That's okay. Next, power 1,60,000. That will be based on horsepower of the machine. 3 is to 3 is to 2. Correct? Power horsepower of the machine 3 is to 3 is to 2. Divide. Next, canteen 1 lakh in the ratio of what? Canteen means who will come and eat? Workers only. So 20 is to 15 is to 15, or 4 is to 3 is to 3. Right. That's it. Done. Are we done with this? Easy peasy. Moving on. Next one is we'll be looking at step ladder method or non-reciprocal method. In this, what happens? It considers one service department service to another service department. You got the point? But it will be like a one-way traffic. Either you can give service or you can take back service. Now here there are some important points you need to understand while solving sums. Sequence determined by maximum number of services. For example, you have P, Q, R, S, like 4 service departments are there. P has given 4 services, Q has given 3 services, R has given 2 services, S has given 1 service. Then you start with P, then go to Q, then go to R, then go to S. That is a sequence. Sometimes, mostly sequence will be given in the question. Okay, if sequence is not given in the question, then go with maximum number of services. If that details are also not given in the question, then go with large amount of cost. Means, suppose you have got P, Q, R, S. P has got 4 lakhs. Q has got 3 lakhs, 2 lakhs, 1 lakh. Then you'll start with a large amount of cost. You'll start with P first, then you go with Q, then you go with R, then you go with S, in that order. Remember, when you're doing secondary distribution, order of reapportionment is important. In all other methodologies, that is not important. Only when it comes to step ladder method, order of apportionment is important. Now, how to decide the order? Either based on maximum number of services or based on the large amount of cost, or it will be given in the question. Remember, again I repeat, when it comes to step ladder method or step cost method or non-reciprocal method, whatever it is, order of apportionment is important. First with service department, next with service department, next with service department, very important. Keep this in mind. Okay, let's go to illustration 2 now. Suppose the expenses of 2 production departments A and B and 2 service departments X and Y as under. Production departments, service departments, all the numbers are here, which means primary distribution is over. So what is the situation over here? He himself have gave you apportionment basis. Okay, you have Y, A and B. Production departments are A and B. Service departments are X and Y. Okay. Prepare a statement apportioning the cost of service departments over production department using step ladder method. Very simple. What you will do first, particulars, you will write production department A and B. First, you will write overheads after primary distribution. What is overheads after primary distribution for production department A and B? 3 lakhs as well as 3,20,000. Correct? Then you'll start with service department. As you can see, who has got maximum number of services provided? See here, X has provided 1, 2, 3. Y has provided 1, 2. Correct? Therefore, we'll start with X. So you start with the X. You understand the point? Then you go with Y. That is very important. So you'll have A, B, then X and Y as well. Okay. Now, so A and B, X and Y. First, this amount you copy paste it. We have copy pasted this amount. Then you'll start with X first. Why you are starting with X first? Why you are starting with X? Because X is giving maximum number of services. So first you'll start with X because it is 3. Y is giving only 2 to A and B only. You got the point? Because it is step ladder method. So X has given service to Y na. Therefore Y again cannot give back service to X. You got the point? That is the logic. That's why X is giving 3 services, Y is giving only 2 services. Because if Y also gives service back to X, then what will happen? It will become reciprocal. That is not step ladder method. That is reciprocal services method, where you can give and take back the service. Because X has given service to Y, Y can't give back service to X. That road is blocked. It is one-way traffic. You got the point? That is why you have to go in the order where X has given maximum number of services. So first we'll start with X, then we'll go with Y. Clear? Now you start with X, very easy. Sorry, you start with X, very easy. How much is that? 2 lakhs is the amount. 2 lakhs in the ratio of 25%, 40%, 35%. Done. Now you start with Y. Okay, between A and B. Now how much will be the Y? After X distribution is happened, total the Y. Already 1,50,000 is there after primary distribution. Now X has given some 50,000 to Y. Total is 2 lakhs. This 2 lakhs will be apportioned in the ratio of what? 40% and 60% between A and B. Ho gaya. What is important when it comes to step ladder method is order of apportionment. First you will start with which service department, next you will start with which service department. First I'll start with X because the number of services are more, next I'll go with Y. Okay, in this question it is like that, maximum number of services. Some questions the details will not be given. You will go with amount of cost, which has got more cost. You start with that service department, then next less cost, next less cost. Sometimes question itself will tell you go in this order, then follow the question. Very easy, easy peasy. Moving on to next one. What is the next one? You have got reciprocal services method. In this we have got three methods: simultaneous equations and repeated distribution method. These two are important, so we'll see these two only. Okay, let's start with simultaneous equations method, illustration 3. Now moving on to illustration 3. Okay, ready? All right guys, let's look into this illustration 3. We'll try to understand the simultaneous equations method. Now remember, most important point, you can apply simultaneous equations method only when the number of service departments are 2. If it is more than 2, you can't apply this method. You either go for repeated redistribution method or you go for trial and error method. As simple as that. First important point. Okay, now how to solve this? See, the problem is here you are having reciprocal services. Means what? If you can see here, boiler house is a service department giving 5% of the service to pump room. Similarly, pump room is a service department giving 50% of the service to boiler house. Now let's say boiler house expenses are 3 lakhs. Is it 3 lakhs really? No, because pump room is giving 50% to boiler house. So that also you need to add to find out the exact value of boiler house. Similarly, boiler house is also giving 5% to pump room. So therefore it's a deadlock for you. That's why we have to go for simultaneous equations. Okay. Now, so what we'll do is that, let us say, I'll solve it here itself. Let B stand for boiler house expenses and let P stand for pump room expenses. Okay. So B is equal to, what is the boiler house expense? 3 lakhs plus pump room is giving 50% to boiler house. Na? So therefore 50%, which is nothing but 0.50 of pump room expenses, because already I've presumed that P is for pump room expense, right? Now pump room expenses is equal to already 60,000 plus pump room is getting how much? 5% from boiler house. So 5% means 0.05 into boiler house, which is B. Now you solve these two equations, you will be able to get the answer. Okay. Here already it is solved. If you want, I can solve here also. So what I'll do is that very simple. P is equal to 60,000 plus 0.05 into B. Na? In the place of B, you substitute this whole number. You substitute this in the place of B. Okay. You'll be able to get the answer. So I'll write over here. P is equal to 60,000 plus 0.05 into 30,000. Sorry, 3 lakhs plus 0.5 P. That's what even he has done here. Why to do it again? Okay. You solve this, you'll be getting P is equal to 76,923. You got it? Then you substitute it in the boiler house equation. Here in the place of P, you substitute 76,923, you will get B as well. That's it. After that, normal secondary apportionment you will do, because now you know what is the expenditure of boiler house. Okay, pump room is 76,923 and not 60,000, and boiler house is 3,38,462 and not 3 lakhs. Now you know the expenses. Now you know the apportionment. Boiler house gives 60% to A and 35% to B. You take the boiler house expenses, which is 3,38,462. In that, 60% will go to A and 35% will go to B. Simple. And then you take pump room expenses, which is 76,923 into 10% will go to A, 40% will go to B. That's all. You got your answer. Easy peasy. Done. Moving on to next one. What is the next one? You've got trial and error method. Okay, that also will do. What is there? Come to illustration 4. Sands Limited is a manufacturing company. So what do we have? 3 production departments, 2 service departments. Okay, A, B, C, 3 production departments, 2 service departments. Direct material cost is given. Direct wage cost is given. Okay, for all the departments it is given. Factory rent, power, depreciation, other overheads is given. All right, additional information is also given. Area is given for all the departments, 5. Okay, capital value of assets is given in lakhs. Mishnas is given for all the 5. Horsepower is given for all the 5. A technical assessment of apportionment of expenses of service department is as follows. X is giving service to A, B, C and Y. Y is also giving service to A, B, C and X. All right, C it is not giving, but Y is giving service to X, X is giving service to Y, which means it is reciprocal services. Okay. Now you can, because there are 2 service departments, you can also solve this sum by following simultaneous equations method or trial and error method or repeated redistribution method, whichever you want you can do. But because for example purpose, we're gonna solve it based on trial and error method. You got it? Everybody? Chalo. Okay, the moment you see this question, what you need to understand is, just a second, Anna. Okay, there are certain twists in this question. I want you guys to be careful. First thing is, in the earlier questions, if you can see, the overheads are already apportioned to all the departments. For example, not this question. This is focusing on service department. This question. See, the overheads are already apportioned to all the departments, correct? Whereas in this question, if you can see, there are overheads which has not been distributed to all the departments, which means primary distribution is not yet completed fully, or the first step of apportionment is not yet completed fully, which we need to do it right now. Okay, now very simple. Factory rent you'll be apportioning to all A, B, C, X, Y, which means production department and service department. Now factory rent in what ratio? Factory rent of 4 lakhs in the ratio of area, that is this one. Okay, it will be coming 2 is to 1 is to 2 is to 1 is to 2, right? In that ratio you apportion it for A, B, C and D. Sorry, A, B, C, X and Y. That's what they've done. Factory rent apportioned. Okay, next we'll go with power. 2,50,000 in what ratio, Nana? Power in what ratio? Horsepower and machine hours are given. Just now I've explained this concept, na? You should take multiplied value of both. So you do a separate working note, you multiply this value, you will get a value, and then based on that ratio you apportion. Okay, this power 2,50,000 to all the departments. Okay, I think, yeah, he has taken the multiplied value. Next, depreciation 1 lakh. So what is the suitable value? Obviously capital value in this ratio. You will apportion depreciation. Next, other overheads. Other overheads 9 lakh in what ratio? What is left over here? Meshnas is left over. So it will be based on Meshnas. Simple. So with this, you will be done with what? Primary distribution. Apart from this, there is one twist. What is that twist, sir? Most of the students, what is the mistake they will do is, sir, we are discussing a chapter called overheads. Why did he give direct material and direct wages? So it is irrelevant, sir. So they will ignore this completely. Wrong. Direct material of production department is direct material for the company. Direct material of production department is direct material for the company. But direct material of service department is direct for service department. But for production department, it is indirect. So therefore, indirect for the company as well. Therefore, even though you call this as direct material and direct wages, when it comes to service department overheads, they are direct from their individual department's perspective, that is service department perspective, but they are indirect for the company, indirect for the production department. That's why these two should be taken. That's why it has been taken in your answer as overheads. Do you understand the point? So this is where most students do mistake. So I hope this particular point is clear. I explained you the logic as well. They are indirect from their own perspective, but from company's perspective, from production department perspective, they are indirect. That's why only this is taken. This is ignored because these three are direct from production department's perspective, direct from the company's perspective as well. These two are direct from service department perspective, but indirect for the company. Therefore, overheads. Therefore, it has been taken. Clear? Because units are manufactured here, not here. Got the point? That is the logic. I hope this is clear. Okay, once you do this, primary distribution is now finished. So it is not directly given in the question. Now you have done it separately. Okay, after this you will go for secondary distribution. In secondary distribution, what you are going to do? Very simple. Look at the service departments. X gives 10% to Y. Y gives 5% to X. So first you need to find out what is the total cost of X and what is the total cost of Y. Are you thinking total cost of X and Y is 4,75,000 and 5,35,000? No. X is 4,75,000 plus X is getting how much from Y? 5% of Y. And Y is 5,35,000 plus 10% of X. Correct? You got the point? Same, you can solve it by using simultaneous equations, or in trial and error method, what will happen? Let us see. Just take X and Y. Take 4,75,000 and 5,35,000. Okay. X is giving how much to Y? 10%. So take the 10% of this X, which is 4,75,000, which is 47,500, give it to Y. Now Y is this much. Now Y is giving how much to X? 5%. So take this 5,82,500, multiply that with 5%, give it to X. Now again, now you have a new X, which is 29,125. In that, give 10% to Y. Now again, take Y. In that 5%, you give it to X. You keep on doing this until your number becomes negligible, like 100, 50, 10. Here, your JICA scenario is there. What do you mean by JICA scenario? So sometimes your ICA will do mistakes. Means in some questions they say 146 is a negligible number. In some questions they'll solve till 10 rupees, till 5 rupees, till 1 rupee also. Now the question is, which is considered negligible that your ICA only knows. In some questions they'll take 146, in some questions they'll take 50, in some questions they'll take 10, in some questions they'll take 5 rupees also. Till 5 rupees they'll keep on solving this. You understand the point? Once you are done with this step, you got this number na, 5,04,271, 5,85,415. This is what you will get if you solve those simultaneous equations. In the last question we have solved simultaneous equations na. After that we have got this number 3,38,462 and 76,923. That number is nothing but this one. There you have created simultaneous equations and then we have solved it. Here we have done, it's like a trial and error method. We gave 10%, got 5%, 10%, 5%, 10%, 5%, 10%, 5% till it becomes negligible. Got the point, right? And finally you will just distribute it. Okay, so once you have got this 5,04,271 and 5,85,413, hereafter it is easy only, na. Hello? Yeah, because you see, you take 5,04,271, which is X expenditure. Come to the question. X expenditure is 5,04,271, correct? Out of that, 45% will go to A, 15% will go to B, and 30% will go to C. That's all. Now you take Y, which is how much? 5,85,413. You take Y, and out of this 5,85,413, 60% will go to A, 35% will go to B. That's all. C, it is not there. That's what we have got here. Got it? Are we done? Chalo. Okay, now moving on to the last one. What is the last one you have got? Repeated distribution method. Okay, illustration 5. Now let's go to repeated distribution method. Now this is nothing but similar to trial and error method, Nana. In trial and error method, you are doing this repeatedly only for service departments, na. In repeated redistribution method, you will do it for production departments as well. That's all. That's the only difference. Here you are doing it only for service department, like 10% giving, 5% getting, again 10% giving, 5%, again 10%, 5%, 10%, 5%, 10%, 5%. You're doing it only for service departments. In repeated redistribution method, you'll do it for all. That's all. Anyways, now let's have a look into that. What is there? That's the last one we have got. Illustration 5. See here. So, okay, for illustration 4 only, he's asking you to do it as per repeated redistribution method. Okay. Now, first of all, as usual, we are done with primary distribution. Take these numbers. Okay. What is that? You have 2,70,000, 3,70,000, 6 lakhs. This is for A, B, and C. This is for X and Y. Correct? Right? Take these numbers first. This is overheads after primary distribution or overheads after apportionment. 2,70,000, 3,60,000, 6 lakh, 4,75,000, 5,35,000. You have taken this. This is step 1. After that, we'll start with X. Okay. In case of X, how much it is providing Nana service? 45%, 15%, 30%, 10%. Put it. Okay. Take the X, which is 4,75,000. 45%, 15%, 30%, 10%. Put those numbers. Then X will become 0. Now you take Y, 60%, 35%, 5%. You distribute Y. Then again you will give something to X. Now again new X has come, 29,125. Similar to this one. Now again distribute X to all. Now earlier this 29,125 you have distributed only to Y. Instead of that, now you will be doing it to including the production departments. To all you will do. Take 29,125 again in the ratio of 45, 15, 30, 10. Distribute to all. Now again X will become 0. But in this process, you will give something to Y. Earlier, Y has become 0 here. But now again, Y has got 2912. Now take 2912. Again, in this ratio, you distribute 60, 35, 5. Now again, X will get something. Now again, you take X of 146. Again, distribute in the ratio of 45, 15, 30, 10. Y will get something. Now again, you take this Y and then give it something to X unless it becomes what? Negligible number. In this case, it is 15. Whereas in the last problem, he said 146 itself is negligible. Whereas in this sum, he did not stop at 146. He went till 15. This is what we call JICA scenario. We can't do anything. So the only difference is in trial and error method, you will just be doing this calculation between X and Y. Whereas when it comes to this so-called repeated distribution method, you will be doing it for all the departments, not just service departments in case of trial and error method. In one way, repeated distribution method is that method which will take a lot of your time in the examination. Simultaneous equations method, you can do it faster. Trial and error method also you can do it faster, but repeated distribution method will take a lot of time. So be careful with that when you get that question in the examination. You got the point? Of course, when you have more than 2 service departments, the only choice you have got is to go for repeated distribution method or trial and error method. You can't follow simultaneous equations. Clear? Keep that also in mind. I hope. Okay, already I think it has crossed nearly 1 hour 10 minutes. So we'll stop here. Only small concepts are left over. Absorption concept. Okay. So if you want, guys, even if you want me to cover that as well, just comment it in the video. I'll cover that and I'll put it. Okay. Chalo.